ほら、これだろ。
それっす。あ、でも今これしか手持ちがなくて。
じゃあ売れるのはこれ。
Performing a drug deal right as someone is walking past you.
行こうか。
落としましたよ。
If I was this chick on the far left who never took her eyes off of him, I'd be like, what? When you never even bent down?
イタリア住んでたことあるとか？いや、これはロハン先生に喋れるように。いや、そうじゃなくて。
That seems like an odd thing you'd tell someone you just met.
なことは俺には関係ねえんだよ。お、なんだこりゃ。家族の写真か?
Yeah, my mind wouldn't go straight to family member when I see a topless dude in a photo in a teenager's wallet.
薄皮でいいんだが、ちょっぴり取ってきてほしいんだ。それだけのことだ。
ほう。
旅費は全額負担するよ。
え、全額ですか?
Well, I mean, he's asking you to go on a trip halfway around the world to do him a favor, so yes?
なんかこの少年失礼ですけど、どこか丈太郎さんに似てますね。彼を知ってる人に聞いたところ、染めたんじゃなくて最近急に変わったんだそうです。死んだ父親の遺伝だとか。
So to be clear, some people who know of him specifically mention that his hair turned golden because of his dead father's genes? That's a weird thing to say.
強力なスタンド使いがその町にいるといった影響で。
強力なスタンド使い。
Ah yes, I did forget that Baby Eren-chan was the main one repeating back parts of what he's just been told in the form of a question in this anime, so let's go ahead and say no!
なんだろうとお前の口の中に入れることができるんだぜ。
靴しかない。
The people from the background just now have disappeared.
君がしてくれたことは決して忘れない。
Person in the past memory having no ice cliché. He fell directly backwards between the seats, but then hopped on over in front of a set of chairs.
ゴールドエクスペリエンスの攻撃をまともに食らったのでは。少なくとも骨ぐらいはへし折れているはず。
How do you know that though? You just said yourself that you've never attacked anyone with the stand before.
おい、お前ら何やってんだ。警官呼ぶぞ。
Well, this dude definitely wasn't on the tram just now.
一旦距離を置いてから貴様を始末させてもらおう。
Why would you tell him that though?
まっすぐ歩いてください。番号 N の28ポルト。
ライターを花に変え、炎を花びらの中に隠した。
Wouldn't it make more sense to keep it in the form of a flower where the flame is hidden and can't go out rather than turn it back into the form of a lighter where it's affected by wind and stuff?
遠隔自動操縦型だ。あのスタンドは遠隔自動操縦型。
No.
何をするんだ。今増えるって言ったのか。矢を持ってたポルポのスタンドは見ての通りやっつけたぞ。
I'm sorry, are you weirdly assuming that that stand couldn't have possibly used the arrow on anyone prior to meeting you?
本体はダメージなくピンピンしてるさ。生きてるのかポルポは。
Here's a question though, this dude only just learned about stands other than his own, and yet he's under the automatic assumption that the death of a stand means the death of its user. Why is that?
来てるも何も遠隔自動操縦型ってのは本体にはまるで影響がないんだ。感じたとしたらせいぜい手が重くなったってことぐらいかな。
Why does he say this though after seeing the effects that his stand had on Kira in part 4? Because he used a long-range stand ability, and his gravity attack had him practically dragging his hand all the way to him, including right in front of him.
敵は一人じゃない。組織なんだ。君が誰かに喋ればそこからバレる可能性がある。敵？組織？
My word, he just lives for these moments, doesn't he?
ジョルノ・ジョバーナです。
ああ、そうだった。すまない。食事だ。
Bullshit.
だが、侮辱するという行為に対しては命を懸ける。
So, I'm confused. What's the point in showing him being a bed and biting into his fingers in the previous episode if that's got nothing to do with his stand's abilities?
問題は後釜だな。
Never talk you for a white supremacist!
わかったわ。
どうかされましたか？
Well now, that's not really any of your business regardless, is it, young man?
俺からよく言って聞かせるよ。息子さんの名は？
お願いします。
Yeah, okay, but what's his name?
本当は優しい子なんです。
Yeah, alright, but we need his name.
でも最近
What's his f***ing name, you bitch?
あれおかしいな、止まったぞ。
He doesn't notice the wet Sprite juice clearly on the top and back of an otherwise clean and dry player.
行き先はカプリ島だ。
カプリ島？
Yes.
お前ら見えなかったのか。ナランチャがこのボックスの中に引きずり込まれたように俺には見えたんだ。
なんですって？んなわけねえだろ。
These guys all have different stand abilities themselves and yet are confused as to how something seemingly impossible can occur.
ああいうやつは倒せるかもな。
倒せる。
Alright, I'll let you have this one.
お前こんな時につまらねえことにこだわってんじゃねえだろうな。
つまらねえこと。
Okay, now you can go flip yourself.
ダメだ、逮捕する。
なあ、よく考えなよ。俺を逮捕したらあんたが賄賂を受け取ってることもバレちまうんだぜ。
Well, it would be an accusation and not a fact, and this guy should know that being a cop. It's pretty much being a cop 101, the difference between accusation and fact. I made that up, but you get the point.
ゴールドエクスペリエンスで防御しろ。バカな。
Dude, it's not impossible though, is it? You've seen it happen 3 times now, and you know stands are a thing. It's just a weird stand ability. They're hardly playing around though when they're attempting to gain information from him as to who his partner is, bruh.
こいつ船の無線を使っているぞ。
ムーディーブルースのリプレイで何か見つけたな。
Yeah, he just told you he was using the radio. Excuse me?
一発につき一人ついてる。ついてる。
Was that something you felt the need to specifically ask about?
まだ誰も動かない。まだ誰も向かわない。
どなたもいらっしゃいませんか? My guy, you've been shouting at like 15 people for 45 seconds saying the same thing and no one has come forward.
よったで。ズッケーロのやつにやられたんじゃ。ミスター、後ろだ。やつは無線に出ているんだ。ミスター。
At this point though, what's the sense in yelling and staying right where you are? You don't have to stay by the radio anymore, so he could have been making his way over to him.
だよな。数合ってるよな、ミスター。
The driver of this truck is just, well, he's just okay with continuing his journey, really, despite having a gun pointed at his head earlier on and there were several shots fired on the roof of his truck. What a brave and confusing young man.
そうなんだよ。誰か止めてくれ。このトラックを止めてくれよ。さっきからよ。
Oh, you sneaky little legends, you at David Productions.
お前は決して。
Why would you risk falling by going this way though when you can walk or run along the road towards them? Reaction occurs just about the longest after an attack that I've ever seen in my life of watching anime cliché.
直々の命令なんじゃよ。
ボスですって。
The boss?
ボスの娘を護衛する。命をかけて。
娘。
ボス。
娘ですって。
いずれ正体を突き止めて。
Everyone is so confused.
今より始まる。渡したぞ、ブチャラティ。
渡した。
One more and I think I'll be forced to activate the secret technique of the dragon Zawaldor in an attempt to stop any more needless sins from building up. I had to do the same thing during Diamond is Unbreakable as well, so don't worry too much.
トリッシュは何も知らぬ。ただのか弱い小娘だというのに。
Not sure you can really say she's just a fragile girl when she more than easily took a knife to Midoriya's face and cut him a little.
ハンカチないから買ってきてね。
しかしこの隠れ家がバレるのは絶対に阻止しなくては。
分かってるってくどいな。
よし、今言った手順を最初から繰り返して言ってみて。
Dude, why don't you just go?
だがな、ナランチャのスタンド能力ならもしいたとして尾行者を阻止するのに安心だから、ブチャラティはこいつに行かせろって指示したんだ。
Man, they're really making this hard to sin. God damn.
俺17だから車持ってねえんだよ。だから借りるんだ。
This would make it difficult to drive.
やばい、むちゃくちゃすぎる。切れて見境なく撃ちまくってる。
No, he's most definitely shooting in your general direction constantly, dude.
この靴も俺のじゃねえ。全然でけえ。どこ行ったんだ。
This guy is too dumb to realize that the shoe that looks exactly like his but bigger that his feet are currently in is his own damn shoe.
フロントガラスから前が見えねえ。なんだこの車も俺のじゃねえ。
Really? Now he's also dumb enough to think that someone just has a giant friggin' car that looks just like his on the same street that's also dented and covered in bullets on the inside.
頭悪いのかこいつ。気づけ、てめえが縮んでんだよ。
Okay, you know what? They can take one bag, but I'm keeping the other one because that's super dumb.
能力が効き始めるまで時間はちょっとかかるがよ。
Wouldn't he have gotten crushed just now, though?
開いたぞチキショー。
This isn't how automatic doors work. They have safety mechanisms for this reason, you know, so that, like, children don't get stuck in them all over Italy.
それにこのことを知ればブチャラティはボスの娘を別の場所に移しちまう。
So if he had the feeling from the start that he was one of the guys looking for the boss's daughter, why not make himself small and then hitch a ride to wherever he was heading instead?
水の中にいるのまで探知を。リトルフィーター
Talking underwater.
俺の呼吸を探知していたんだ。やはり俺とネズミの区別がついてねえな。ならば
I guess they didn't find the inherent problems with saying a character isn't breathing and then having him audibly breathe as he runs.
殺せ。チクショー殺しやがれ。
He couldn't hear the big guy when he was in his pocket earlier on and talking freely the entire time to himself, and yet now he can hear him when he's the same size.
てめえらが拉致しようとしてんのはギャングでもなんでもねえ。ただの女だ。
仲間だとか女を守るだとかよ。そんな次元の話をしてんじゃねえぞ。
Yeah, but first and foremost, you are actually talking about the girl and stuff. Taking down the boss and taking over his business comes after. But right now, you are talking about the girl.
これよ。お前がさっきガラスの破片を出した時、ポケットから一緒に落ちたんで、今拾ってみたんだがよ。
Whoa, JoJo really going next level with the whole explaining what you're doing whilst you're doing it.
火がでかくなるのに時間がかかって焦ったけどよ。
何
Why would you tell him all of that, though?
スタンドを出したぞ。誰が戦う。
待てフー。さっきからお前何を言っているのかさっぱりわからん。
この鏡がどうかしたんですか。
What? Can something ever just be faulty with a f***ing mirror, dude?
問題はだ。ボスの娘をどこに隠したのか。
I think the biggest question right now is how are you guys able to randomly find them all the time and yet not be able to find where they're hiding with the boss's daughter?
とにかく早く離れろ。近づくんじゃねえ。
フーゴの
パープルヘイズから離れるんだ。早くしろ。
Dear God, he has to tell him literally 4 times to move away from it. Just listen, Giano Nodoma-sama.
まずいぜ。ここにいるのはまずい。逃げるぞ。来い。
何を言ってるのか分かりません。あの鏡に何かある。
It's becoming painful to me that he's still not listening to this guy. Monogin.
殺人ウイルスだ。あれがフーゴのスタンド、パープルヘイズの能力。
ウイルスですって。
Virus?
やはりな、フーゴはコントロールできてねえ。またわけのわからねえところを攻撃しやがったぜ。
Calling the mirror, where everything weird started just now, a random spot.
言葉にき
汚染された僕を鏡の中に引きずり込んだ時点で、奴の敗北は決まったんです。
So to be clear though, does this mean that he infected his hand with the virus and then just hoped that within 30 seconds he would get attacked and pulled into the mirror?
The snake disappeared.
ああ、 おい
待て、投げるな。
大げさだな。痛みを感じるっていい前兆じゃないのよ。
No, it's not, unless just before this scene began he was saying he didn't have any feeling in it, but we're not shown that, and so I'm led to simply say no. That was an oddly quick movement from the chesticles to her face, and you'd think if he had the ability to move upwards, he'd have moved backwards towards his seat. These guys are able to consistently find where the team is, and yet never finds them in such a fashion that would allow them to at the same time find the boss's daughter with them.
よほど追い詰められて土地狂ったか、それとも俺たちの追跡をかわす方法に何らかの自信があるということか。
One of the two options these guys come up with to explain away him being at the train station is that he's lost his mind and is now randomly stumbling around a station off his rocker.
どっちにしろぶっ殺してやる。ホールマジオとイルーゾーの仇だ。ぶっ殺す。
Wouldn't it be a pure assumption at this point that at least Illuso is dead, given that he just died and they just arrived at the train station following that event happening?
さっきからうるせえぞ、ぶっ殺すぶっ殺すってよ。なぜなら俺や俺たちの仲間はその言葉を頭の中に思い浮かべた時には実際に相手をやっちまってもうすでに終わってるからだ。
It would be really weird to think to yourself or say out loud, I'm going to kill him after you've already done it.
俺の目の前でブチャラティが列車に飛び乗った。通路から来たおめえと出会ってなきゃおかしいよな。
He says this even though over his shoulder when he enters the train you can see 3 visible doors and he never tries or even looks at the door on the far left before saying this.
奴らが俺たちの存在にもし気づいたら列車を止めに来るかもしれないからな。
Given that you saw him run onto the train and disappear, not past your colleague, not through the other side and back out onto the platform, and you believe they're still on the train and not in the driver's room, then isn't it logical to presume they do indeed know you're on the train and hunting them?
わかったよ兄貴。
奴らは娘を抱えている。この列車内をおいそれと動き回ったり。
If this guy's hook just hooks people and doesn't outright kill them, then this dude is way too chilled about having a hook through his cheek and is definitely not in enough pain to knock him unconscious.
どうしたんです？何かあったんですか？
Look on the mask, my boy.
The old man's legs from just now have disappeared, did.
助けて。どけ、この老いぼれがゾンビくせえ手でこの俺。
Why would this guy go through the trouble of grabbing his teammate at this point, though? If he let him get away, Mister would still come past trying to finish him off regardless, allowing him to grab a hold of him anyway.
ペッシペッシペッシペッシよ。俺はおめえを信じてるんだ。黒っぽいものとかよ。
え？黒っぽいもの？
No, that doesn't sound right at all.
亀かよ！亀だ！
見つけたぜ、トリッシュだ。他の奴らも見える。
Talk about great eyesight, there'd be like 1 centimeter tall inside the ball of that key.
だがスピードを理解していないのはお前の方さ、ブチャラティ。
Why must they always let them have a good old chat at length? Kill him!
だがな、ブチャラティ。お前はついてない幹部だ。落ちていくんだな。
Kicking to the face sound effects brought to you by www.spankingdeadass.com.
なんてことをするんだブチャラティ。これしか方法がないのはわかる。
If you know there's no other way, then how can you be surprised that he did it?
だよ、大丈夫なのかおい。
静かに。
Also, that ice should have melted like half an episode ago.
いや、きっとブチャラティが何も言わないから彼女は不安になっているんだ。トリッシュは多分自分でも気づいていないスタンド使い。
Not gonna lie, dude, that's a super weird and random assumption to make at this point in time.
あ、おめえらそれどっから？まさか。
なんでわしのハンバーガーが消えるんだ？
Not gonna lie, dude, that's a super weird and random thing to say at this point in time.
次は子供のする遊びだね。
Ah, yes, the classic children's game of ice skating.
クローゼットをトイレにしましょう。どうぞ。
どうぞって。
お栄養にするかも。
私何を言ってるか理解できないんだけど。
Do it in the slit! It's not rocket science what he's getting at!
どうかしたのか？
いや、ジョルノが手を振ってる。きっとブチャラティが早く車を手に入れろって催促してんだよ。
Yeah, because historically speaking, waving has normally been indicative of superiors being tired of waiting and not, you know, to gain bloody attention in some way.
オイルがこぼれている。待て。二度と復活できないように仕留めるんだ。
Not using this opportunity to quickly call for your friends at the same time as leaping into action.
この辺りのはず。
わしの車
私の車盗まれたの？
I'm sorry, can you not deduce that yourself when it's bloody gone?
なんだ今のは。
Randomly shows more shock and concern at the fact that he saw a snake in a train station in Rome than he does when said snake lands on his back.
アバキオ、ここの椅子のところに来てくれないか。
俺？
No, the other one.
ボスへのトリッシュの引き渡し方法を述べるからだ。
引き渡し方法。
それでは言う。
Nice of him to pause to allow for their comments during this speech. Wait, so wouldn't that mean that his body would have been at the water fountain pretty much just before they got there? Or does this mean the boss had someone go along who would be able to get rid of the mess using a stand ability? No answers equals a confusing sin.
エンジンは燃焼しているから止まらないようですが。
How did he manage to get on top of the car though with no one noticing?
誰がツタを岸まで伸ばせって言ったよ、ジョルノ。これでいいんだよ。短い草がいいんだよ。だがもっとだ。もっとだ。もっと。
Maybe you should have actually specified that just in case then.
俺のせいだ。俺の責任だ。
This wet wooden barge pole can be used to ascend.
くしょう。至近距離ならもう一度奴の首の後ろの穴にぶち込める。
Why would you say all of that out loud when he's right there in front of you though?
見えねえ。血が凍りついて固まっ。
What's even more amazing is how he managed to specifically get his blood to only hit him in the face and nowhere else.
ミスター、ディスクは無事ゲットしました。あなたのおかげで。
直せよ。息ができね
え。It would be really awkward if he died whilst explaining all of this.
死んじまわねえうちに早く直せよ。
もちろんです。しかし、はっきりさせときたいんですが。
You know, since he's covered in like 25 bullet holes.
ゴールドエクスペリエンスの能力は正確には直すんじゃなくて体の部品を作るんです。
Real awkward.
おいミスター、優しくして優しく。こんな汗なんて感じる。僕が彼女を大鐘楼の上まで連れて行きます。
ボスは誰が無事か分かってねえからこう指示してるだけだろうが。
Yeah, that's why he volunteered because he didn't specify anyone.
今は手術が終わるのをお待ちください。気をしっかり持って他の家族の連絡先を教えて。
Hardly seems like the second thing you'd say to this kid who just watched his father riddled with bullets get wheeled into surgery. Can you give us your phone number?
よーしよ、体力がありやがるからな。ちくしょう、見張ってるからさっさとやれ。
Sneaking in through the window and then proceeding to shout as loud as possible. Let's be real, I'm loving this, and the Wind's version is huge, but he definitely felt that smack his ass from all the way up there.
ゴールドエクスペリエンス。
ならない。
When he initially threw the laptop, it broke into pretty big pieces and seemingly hit a pillar, but when the scene changes, it's broken up into tiny pieces in the middle of the room near enough.
さすがに体力を消耗したようだ。
痛みがないのか。傷口からの出血もない。見間違いか。
Well, no, I mean there was definitely no blood. You can just look at the floor and not see any blood and double check easily enough.
ブチャラティ、あんたと一緒の時だけだ。
アバッキオ。
Nicely added, Giorno.
出会ったばかりの会話もろくすっぽしたことのない女なんかのためにどんな音楽が好みなのかも知らないんだぞ。
Well, that's a new one.
菜食主義ってよあるよな。
あれってよ、チーズとかはさ、食っちゃっていいわけ？
そいつはダメだろうな。
Whoa, whoa, whoa. Let me stop you there as a vegetarian, alright? You're describing vegans, okay? Sort your life out. Oh, and no sin, I'm just saying.
ジョルノ、びくついても始まらない。今は堂々と食おう。
What about him staring off intensely into the distance looks like he's scared? If anything, it looks like he's keeping an eye out, which, let's be honest, is a really good idea at this point in time, no?
サルディニアよ。サルディニアに過去と正体はきっとある。
なぜ俺たちに教える？俺たちは君の父親を殺すかもしれない。
He tried to kill her? So maybe that's why?
どうしたナランちゃん、何を指さしている？
He's injured his tongue and only his tongue and yet becomes incapable of any movement.
そりゃもちろん見てな。
ああ、さっきから辻褄が合ってねえ。返事しろ。おめえ何も見てねえんだな。
This guy thinks he's randomly contorting into weird shapes whilst talking merely because he fibbed just now.
そう、私のスタンド。トーキングヘッドがお前の下に張り付いて心と逆のことばかりを言わせている。
Exposition though, since surely he'd know that's what your stand does if that's what your stand does. They're right outside and yet don't hear the stand shooting at the water.
情報ではナランチャのエアロスミスは二酸化炭素を探知できる。
How'd you know that though when the only guy to find it out died right afterwards?
水から水へジャンプしてもな。
I don't know why, but I suspect these two guys...
エアロスミスに君の位置が読まれて先回りされるのはまずいでしょう。
might very well be...
わかったぜ、ティッツァノ。
really good mates.
レーダーの印が消えた。しまった。逃げられた。
Still, no one has heard all of this happening right outside and come in?
この匂いはガスが漏れてる。
これは予定通りだぜ、ナランチャ。
I mean, you definitely can't say it's all according to plan, as you definitely didn't mean to get shot up a whole bunch of times, dude.
焦らないでスクワール。階段の下を見るんです。あの広場には今、君より呼吸の荒い者が何人もいる。
What are you basing that on, other than maybe the two people running?
確か INS とかいう目的地をインプットすれば自動的にコンピューターで連れてってくれる装置がついてんだよ。
So, I mean, are the authorities just okay with them taking this plane? No security or anyone asking any questions and stuff? Because you can't really just do that.
映画で見たことがある。俺が INS を探してインプットし直せば問題はねえだろう。
映画の情報かよ。妙にあっけなさすぎる敵だ。まるで倒されに来たみたいだ。
おめえ、俺と俺のピストルズを侮辱してんのか？
No, he's saying a stand user appeared and walked towards you all in a completely open area during the day and then died instantly. It's not exactly usual for any stand battle in the history of ever.
いいから銃を抜いてください。戸棚が変なんです。
おいおいおいおい。妙なこと言ってんのはおめえだぜ。
God damn, these dudes are way too laid back sometimes. I mean, saying you're the one being weird after he said he can hear a strange sound makes him a massive numpty in their current situation.
ジョルノ、てめえ何の冗談だ？いつこの冷蔵庫に入れたんだ？チキンの食い残しなんかでこの俺を驚かそう。
Why would he put those in there? He's hardly the crew's well-known prankster, is he?
この骨は俺がさっき空港で弾丸ぶち込んだ太っちょ野郎の指じゃねえのか？
Why would he go straight to the fat guy from the runway when he shot him from a large distance away and never actually went up close to him afterwards, instead simply boarding the plane right away?
何？同じ形に食うとは。スタンドが食われてる。
For the love of God, tell someone else what's happening!
オルドエクスペリエンス！
早く新しい右腕を作るんだな、ジョルノ。
You know what? The last sim was legit, but his quick reaction was rare for JoJo and worthy of a send-off.
隠れてもドアの米だわ。私はスタンド使いで自分にはスタンド能力があるってことが
いや、ゆっくりだ。トリッシュ、ゆっくりとこっちに来るんだ。
ブチャラティ、一体何を言っているのか。
動くんじゃないと言ってるんだ。
No, you definitely said to come towards you slowly, dude.
不時着するですって。ブチャラティ、その考えなら逆よ。
Calm take off?
でも一体何に？
俺はお前に近づかない。
Why give yourself away though?
お前が奴に十分近づくまで私が行くわけにはいかない。
I mean, he was just throwing punches right in front of him.
気をつけよう。次で確実にやるためにな。
So to be clear, was he launching a massive attack at the floor right in front of him? Why though? While I got you here, follow me on Twitter to raise my self-esteem. Link down below.
どうした、ドッピオ。奴の攻撃は見ることができたのか。
Would this frog still be chilling right by his feet after all of this?
数秒後またハサミだ。吹っ飛んでいる。間違いなくこれから足が吹っ飛ばされる。
なんだと、ドッピオ。
Oh, my foot is going to go flying off. Not sure why this attack should cause shock though. Neither of them know how the enemy stand works and what it can and cannot do just yet.
生き物の体の中の鉄分を使って鉄のカミソリを体内で作っているんだ。このカエルと俺の体力の消耗が答えだ。
You know what? They acknowledged the frog not leaving the area when dropped, and that's bloody awesome and to be expected from JoJo Golden Wind so far. And you know what? In hindsight, it could very well be the case that this Mr. Hyde, as it were, was more shocked that he was going to lose a foot than being confused about the attack itself, so I'll give the benefit of the doubt there.
数秒後、この画面が起こる前に逆に奴の頭をえぐり飛ばしてやるぜ。さっき足をぶった切ってやったみてえによ。
Why are you saying all of this out loud when he's right nearby and can hear you though?
そこに置いといたんだよ。さっきお前に右足を切断された失敗は反省して。
So to be clear, was the foot cloaked and that's why he failed to see it right in front of him? I don't know, they didn't specifically say it one way or another. Oh well, I'm loving this scene, so they can take a neutral sin.
リプレイに必要な時間はどのくらいだ？
15年前だからな。8分から10分はかかるだろう。
5分でやるのだ。
Well, you know, he might not literally be able to do it in that amount of time. It's his stand and it's the first time he's ever rewinded so far back.
奴の動きが止まったぞ。ブチャラティ。
Yeah, logic dictates when someone is using bloody hand signals that you shut the hell up and pay attention. Shut the hell up and pay attention, Deku! He understood these hand signals perfectly, including the climb a rock one, not sure where he'd learned that, and yet still he felt the need to twice speak just now. That's an additional silly billy sin.
あ、そんなとこで何してんだい、おまわりさん。
今捜査中でね。指紋を探している。
I hate to inform you of this, good sir, but you have not got the tools on you to conduct that task effectively.
可能性だ。君らはそれを手に入れなければならない。
手に入れるだと。
No!
俺にかかってきてんだ。よこせ。このガキが。
Anime go run cliche.
しかも教えるのは君たちのうち一人だけだ。この秘められた力のことは決して他の誰にも漏れてはならないからだ。
What about if they just told someone about it though?
少し冷酷すぎるわ、ブチャラティ。ならんちゃ大丈夫かの一言も言わなかったわ。まずこの亀を投げることをいとも簡単に冷徹に命令したわ。
To make this argument right now is flawed, given that it was a tense combat scenario, and asking nicely isn't something you reasonably expect someone to do in that instance.
では、車は無事に走っている。まだこのカビの射程は広がっていない。
Couldn't that just be explained by the fact that the car is driving up a hill and thus isn't affected by the power of the stand because of it?
あの上を見てくれよ。道路をよ。
おい、せっこ。なんで車が村を出ていくんだ。
Why didn't he have a problem with the other car driving up that same hill earlier on though?
お前が下に落ちちまったとばかり焦ったぜ、ブチャラティ。ジッパーで壁にへばりついたのか。間一髪か。どこもカビにはやられなかったのか。
ミスター、少し休んで。
Driving in the mid lane when you're on your own on the road.
ブチャラティ、さっきの村ではよくも。
Can it ever be referred to as an ambush when you yourself were actively chasing after him at the time? That's a weird assumption to make. It could have belonged to the guy who fell out of the helicopter and into the car window earlier, or they could have just been there from earlier on. Failing that, he could have simply used the scalpel to do something to himself non-doctor related.
一つは絶望が希望に変わった時幸せだと感じる
His spine is wagging.
Bullshit.
I loved this moment, and the Winds version got multiple wins from it, but how the hecking heck did he manage to end up alongside the building when he was knocked directly off of the front of the helicopter, facing away from the building? In fairness to my boy John, not though, you can see the bullet hole is through the cheek and not like the temple or something where you could be more self-assured that he's a goner. Nice to see that these trash workers are undeterred by all the dead and dying people around the streets of Rome and have continued to work regardless. Nice of him to remain silent during the recording of his message in order to allow for reactions from the listener. Giving yourself away before you attack, cliché. Okay, is this guy's additional stand ability the fact that he can see stuff miles away? Because if so, please actually tell us that.
No,
they don't. They say the opposite, actually. Once again, this moment is filled with wins on anime wins, but I gotta point out how there's suddenly loads of vehicles everywhere, even though the entire area was essentially turned into one big melted swimming pool just now. What?! And yet, you continue talking to him all the same. How the hell was he able to move over to the boss, grab him, and come back to this exact location? Packing your bag like this seems incredibly counterproductive when you take gravity into consideration.
Nope.
No! ポリッシュまるで女みたいな名だな
みたい
まずいよバレちまうぞボス
君のデータはないが信用する
ボス
So like, how can Butter Dirt Cheese not hear what he's saying? I know he's showing his soul so as to be the same as Trish, but he's been talking to him all along. So is he somehow turning off and on his soul?
90年代になって俺とかつての仲間空城城太郎はスタンド能力を引き出す矢の追跡調査を行っていた。
Man, I love this anime, but goodness me, the art style change is incredibly apparent when showing these two like this, especially Jotaro.
見て、あそこよ、ブチャラティだわ。
おい、負傷しているみたいだぞ。ブチャラティ。
Based on what? He's not physically bleeding, he's just leant over.
なんじゃこれは。おい、なんなんだよ。なんでこんなのがあるんだよ。
Just stop for a minute and be grateful! Jesus!
今から説明することはいわば希望なのだ。
Multiple exhale and then inhale cliches.
やつならまだ目覚めてねえぜ。ぶっ倒れたままだ。
お前はミスタか
So you went through everyone else and figured them out, but got confused and had to ask at this point if this was Mista, even when she's holding his gun, yeah?
トリッシュあんたは最後まで守り抜くぜ俺たちがならんちゃ
Saying someone's name instead of talking normally, cliche.
前が手渡した時落ちたんならお前がと。
This scene is great, but that number of bullets is definitely a lot more than just now. He managed to trip 6 miles away from where the arrow dropped.
レクイエムは開始時間だからやめたんだ。
開始時間
The starting time?
動くなと言ってるんだミスター。レクイエムには後ですぐ追いつける。
なんだうるせえぞこの野郎。
You'd think, you know, since every single time John has had a feeling about something and been right, he'd have earned some benefit of the friggin' doubt, but no!
なんで俺たちを攻撃しねえで走ってるんだ。
奴はすでに観察して見つけてるぞ。レクイエムから矢を取り上げる方法を。
He's no doubt right, but that's still a massive assumption right there, boys!
これはバカだ。しかも矢がこいつの腕に吸い付いて。こいつは
ジョルノは拒否なんかされていない。矢から資格がないなんて跳ねつけられていない。
How the hell are you getting that from what you're seeing? You already know that Frenchie stabbed himself with the arrow and that didn't go to plan at all in the end. So making this assumption after 5 seconds of seeing it happen to John seems rather premature.
予測できるぞ。このカストマの動きが。
Gotta love the ability to expertly throw your blood at incredibly specific and small areas on your enemy.
俺昨日の夜考えたんだ。人間の肉ってよ、もし食ったらうまいのか、それともまずいのか。
Dumb question, since obviously it depends on how it's made, doesn't it? That's like asking if chicken would taste good, but in the scenario you give, it's raw.
して生きてるぞ。なんとか。
He was bleeding super badly in the water just now, but since climbing out of it, it's entirely stopped.
ここから先はあなたと二人だけでお話をしたいのですが。彼らは私をとても信頼してくれているし、私も同様です。その彼らに対し、食事をやめて外に出て行ってくれなんていうことは。
Or logically speaking, you two could just go somewhere else, dude?
でもなぜこんなに辛い涙が流れるのでしょう。娘は私の希望でした。
Suppose you went on to answer your own question right afterwards.
この町で起こる殺人事件なら、この私の耳に入らないはずはないが。
But you never heard a young woman jumped off a building clutching onto a giant bull, no?
ブチャラティ、この石の形は貴様が例の彫刻家ってやつか。
That looks just a little odd. Should be sticking through his fingers, really, a touch.
しかもこの石の形はスタンドなのか、その石は。
Now it's just a rock that changes size and shape and jumps at people, butcher dirt cheese.
早く下へ。このマンションから出てなるべく遠くへ。その階段で下へ行くのはまずい。上へ登るんだブチャラティ。どこだ。
Bucciolati has spent a solid minute now completely ignoring what Mr. has been saying. Jesus, dude.
彫刻家が犯人のような。でもほとんど犯人ではないような。奴を 1,2 ヶ月入院する程度は痛めつけてやりましたけど。
Not exactly something to brag about when you cleared him as a bloody suspect, dude. Rome is super empty. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. I hope you enjoyed the journey. This was a tough one to sim because every time I latched onto something, it was then pretty much explained afterwards, so I was forced to go back and keep deleting stuff. Overall, I enjoyed this so much though, not just the season, but all of it. As and when the Wins version is fully out, might be before this or afterwards, not sure yet, you'll see all of my thoughts and opinions on everything, so check that out if you like, and of course, I'll see you in the next one. Nathan Byrne, Bird Without a Word, Arias Aligari, Aidan White, PK Fan, Ali 50, Ryan Anderson, Isael Caldera, Chris Harris, Jonas Stahl, Manolo Salcedo Munoz, Luis Hernandez, Kim Munt, Jason Davies, Yuki Ali, Manuel Morales, Dark Lord Bloody Soul, Sentimento, Java6263, Amy San, Alfredo Jimenez, Silva, Master Tank, Boogie, Kevin Nauta, Stefia, Brendan Kriya, Storm 970, Mr. Waffle 64, Fondola Ninja, Kaj Warzormer, Jordan Samuels, Sean Graves, The Epic Commander, Crimson Shadows, Kyle Farmer, Buzzbomb 3000, Adorable, Yagai 7636, Mr. Berigino,